Hello all you spacefaring cosmonauts, as always I am Cosmic, and today we're going to be reviewing Dawn of Andromeda, which is a new real-time 4X strategy game brought to you by Grey Wolf Entertainment and Iceberg Interactive. The game has been on early access for quite some time now and has finally received a launch date, so let's get right into it. So before you start heading off and building your space empire, you must choose a race. Now races are very similar to other 4X strategy games. Each are different, they have different traits, different governments, different structures, and ultimately different advantages and disadvantages depending on how you want to play the game. You can also create your own race and make them completely unique to you. On top of that, the game has two game modes. It has a story mode whereby you play each story map essentially or game by itself, and each will be different in the galaxy size, the amount of enemies that you have, and of course the story events that take place. And then you also have custom game mode whereby you can just create your own game mode like you would in Stellaris, for example, and make the galaxy size as big as you want it and customize the various options. Straight off the bat, you can tell playing Dawn of Andromeda that it looks good. The aesthetic is really nice, and the overall structure of the aesthetic as well as the core mechanics of the game are kind of a blend between Endless Space 2 and Stellaris, and that's very much the vibe that the game gives. The problem is that it does a really good showy job of making itself look nice, but when you take a look under the hood, there are a couple of components missing. A perfect example of this is the colony management. There really isn't that much of it at all, and the depth and customization of each of the core mechanics of the game just feels a little bit shallow at times, and it's like, you know, a perfect smoke and mirrors game. It looks fantastic and it looks like it wants to be one of the greatest 4X strategies ever, but then you look at the abilities that you are given as a player to actually customize and manage your empire, and that is extremely limited. The exploration portion of the game is, again, it just feels too simplified, it's too streamlined. All you have to do is send a scout out, and as soon as you've visited any given space system, you instantly know everything that's there. And instead of like something like Stellaris, whereby you go into a planetary system and then you have to survey each of the planets for their resources to see if there's any anomalies or technology that you can research or to meet any indigenous species. Instead here, as soon as you visited a given star system, you instantly know everything there is to know about it and what's available. Now there is some kind of surveying going on. You can use mining vessels to go mine resources that you find. You can use surveying ships to go research, you know, technology or derelict ships, but they are few and far between, and it's nowhere near the level of content in the exploration portion, at least, to that of its competitors. On the combat side of things, combat takes place real time. You can pause. You don't really have too much control of what your vessels do. It's nothing compared to something like Stars in Shadow, whereby it's turn-based and you have multiple ship abilities and that kind of thing. It's nowhere to that depth. It's more like Stellaris, whereby you build your ships and then send them off and you can watch the battle in real time and you can change the, you know, target and that kind of thing, but there's no real in-depth actual combat system in play. Where the depth of the combat comes into play is of course through the technology and the ship designer. I absolutely love ship designers in 4Xs. I love to research new technologies, new weapons, new shields, new engines, and then build and customize my own versions of ships. And the game does that actually pretty well. The problem is that it is limited on the technology side, and the technology tree is something that I think fans of games like Stellaris and fans of games like Endless Space will probably be a little bit disappointed at, in the fact that it is fairly limited and there isn't that much to research, and each research, because there is fairly limited, takes a lot longer than it would in another game. Now I have two major gripes with Dawn of Andromeda. One, the tutorial. Now for me the tutorial wasn't a problem because I was able to basically skip the tutorial, because if you've played a 4X strategy game before, you'll be able to pick it up without without any issue. But the tutorial is a terrible tutorial. It does not do a good job of basically doing anything. It explains a couple of things and a couple of the UI elements and then basically throws you into the world without really giving you a couple of starter missions to really, start building your empire from the ground up. It's something that if you were a person who had never played a 4X strategy game before, that would create a really strong learning curve that I think would be really frustrating to overcome. On top of that, you have the UI. Now, like I said, I really enjoyed the game's aesthetics. I think the UI, from a visual perspective, it looks really nice. The problem is, it just lacks information. It doesn't give you enough information. On top of that, it's not designed to be that intuitive. Now, like I said, 4X strategy players will be right at home with this. The problem with it is it doesn't feel responsive. It's like a 2D image placed upon a 3D image that doesn't really interact well. If you take the great 4X strategy games and you interact with the UIs, they have sound effects, they make noises, you have characters talk to you or something like that. With this, it's just silence, and it does not make the game feel interactive, and it does not make it feel like a strong UI whereby you feel like you're in control. And for a game like a 4X strategy game, and people say, oh well, that's a minor gripe. It is a minor gripe, but in a game that is all about menus, it is all about research menus, government menus, technology menus, ship designer menus, you have to make those menus engaging and fun, because that is very much part of the process. And Dawn of Andromeda does not do that well. Now, that being said, Dawn of Andromeda is not a terrible 4X game by any stretch of the imagination. It has inbuilt flaws within the game's core design itself. It feels shallow at times. It feels like it's like a cream egg without the filling. It looks nice and it looks like it's going to be all nice and gooey inside, but when you actually bite into it, you realize that the factory done messed up and didn't put any filling in there. And that is the game in essence. It's an enjoyable game. There's nothing particularly wrong with it. There's no fatal design flaws, but it just feels like an oversimplification overall. It feels like a lot of what makes 4X strategy games good for fans of 4X strategy games has been taken away to appeal to a more casual audience. And the problem is with that is the fact that for a casual audience, you really have to show them what's good about 4X strategy games, and this will not do that. This is too oversimplified, and in terms of the pacing, it's a little bit disappointing because of the oversimplification, because the shallowness in a lot of the mechanics. You end up with a much speedier game than something like Stellaris, which for some people may be a really good positive. For me personally, as a fan of 4X strategy games who likes long campaigns and putting 60, 70, 80 hours into a single match, that for me was a big disappointment because it just limits my investment. It limits what I can do with my empire at any given time, and it limits the time and ultimately the resources I can spend within that. And that for me was a little bit of a letdown. I think if you are someone, however, who likes that idea of a faster paced 4X strategy game that doesn't want to micromanage every little thing, who doesn't want to have to worry about, colony populations and moving resources around on a regular basis and having to really basically manage every level of your empire in depth, then I think this might be a really good indie 4X strategy game for you. I think that this might provide that simplified experience for you to sit down and enjoy yourself with. For me, if you're a fan of Stellaris, you probably won't find what you're looking for with this. However, it certainly will appeal to people who want a simplified version of something like Endless Space 2 or Stellaris, and it's certainly an enjoyable experience. The aesthetic's great, the music's great. Like I said, there's a few sounds that are just missing, especially with the UI, which just really, it causes me to twinge every time it happens. But other than that, I think that overall it is a solid product. It is good, but I think for the majority of people, you may want to wait for a sale. And that's just flat out. I think that even if you are a die-hard 4X strategy fan and you like the oversimplification of the game, you probably want to wait till it's around $15 and then pick it up and then really get your money's worth out of it. And that is my review of Dawn of Andromeda. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, make sure to subscribe, share the video on social media, and as always, I will see you next time.